You are now live.
We are now live and we are back, and this is Senate Finance, and we are looking at S33, which is the project-based tax increment finance districts, better known as mini TIFs. This committee approved a version of mini TIFs in, I think, what was then S or H 159, which is now S11. This is S33, which got sent to the House last year. My question is, what is the base bill they're amending? Is it the bill this committee approved earlier this year, or was there another version of S33 that got sent to the House?
So I can help try to
Good.
explain the path of this language. So Becky Wasserman, Legislative Counsel. So last session, beginning of biennium, the Senate Economic Development Committee passed out S33, came to Senate Finance, and that was creating the project-based TIF language, and had some other sort of clarifying language with respect to TIF districts. That went over to the House.
Okay, so this had the same, all that's clarified?
Yeah, it had all that language.
All right, that's how.
And then it didn't move forward in House Ways and Means last session. Beginning of this session, Senate Economic Development took all that language that was in S33 and it ended up in H 159, which came to this committee. You all passed it out of the Senate. It ended up in the House, and my understanding from David Hall, who is working on S11, is that it was initially in S11, H159, but it has since been taken out, so there is no TIF language in S11 right now. So this is currently the only bill that has this kind of technical language. And I am seeing that this is a mistake on my part, but the title of this bill is still project-based TIFs. However, this bill does not have any project-based TIFs. It is solely just changes to the TIF district statutes. And they're changes that are different than the changes you all made in H159.
Okay,
My
so
understanding
this,
was that somewhere along the line, there were other mechanisms that were devised in order to solve the mini TIF problem. So Westford was the prime example that we talked about in committee, because they needed money to do a sewer system and so on in order to revitalize their downtown. But I'm told that they found the money, and I don't know whether it's COVID funds or something else, and that some of the mini TIF stuff as originally envisioned was no longer needed. Does that make sense?
Yes, and so I can answer that. And actually, I am looking at this bill again, and I want to take back what I just said. At the end of the amendment does change the title of the bill. So it looks like it's project-based, but the title is miscellaneous changes to tax increment financing district provisions. In this bill that came over from the House, there is in section 6, there is a reporting requirement that was added that is, I believe, addresses that example of Westford, which says that the Commissioner of Taxes has to come back by January and submit a report to GovOps and Ways and Means on the House side and Finance and GovOps on the Senate to recommend a program to allow municipalities to adopt a local option tax without requiring legislative approval to do municipal projects for infrastructure improvements. So the idea here is, rather than using a TIF construct like the mini TIF project, that the Department of Taxes would come up with a way of using a local option tax mechanism for
that's what
municipalities.
Montgomery just did.
Or maybe it was Montgomery. to use that kind of mechanism to make those infrastructure improvements. So it's not, you know, making any authority in this bill, but it is asking taxes to come back to come up with a program. And the idea is that the program that they would come up with would allow a municipality to do this without legislative approval, so they wouldn't have to come back to the legislature to sort of seek approval each time they want to.
Becky, this is the whole bill, right? It's a strike all amendment
It's a
or?
strike all amendment, yeah.
Okay, so if we read it, then we have an idea of what they've done, but I don't think we're gonna do this in 5 minutes, and we need to, I assume this was Ways and Means? We need to hear from, where it says improvements does not include the funding of debt service payments. Now that I know these are changes to the big TIFs, does that undo the issue we dealt with in St. Albans, which was municipalities as a municipality bonds to build a sewer, what do we call wastewater plant? They get to pay, usually I think it's the interest only, but they get to pay the debt service for X number of years, because they've got to get that up and running before they collect any money. Does that say they can't do it?
Yeah, so this would be essentially a different policy decision than the language that came out of your committee, which allowed that to happen for the first 5 years.
So really, and that's because that is standard municipal operating procedure. That's,
And it makes sense.
yeah, that's how
we
it,
do it.
okay. This,
And I can walk through the changes quickly if you.
Yeah.
want to do that. Okay.
we've got, yeah, we're down to 3 minutes, Becky,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I can
We're
do
not
it.
gonna do this.
I can do it. Okay. So in the first section, it's amending some of the definitions for TIF districts. The first change was that change for improvements, which clarifies that funding of debt service payments would not be allowed. The changes on page 2 to the definition of financing allows speaks to the use of bond anticipation notes. So this is similar to what came out of your committee. So bond anticipation notes can be used as a method of financing, but cannot be used.
Yeah,
As a
this is
first
first and
occurrence.
last occurrence, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not that different from
That's
that.
not that different. It's phrased differently in terms of the year. It came out as like the 5th and the 10th year in your committee. So subdivision 9 is adding a new definition for an active district. So this is a district that is sort of created pursuant to the process that you create a TIF and has not been terminated, the debt has not been retired. That is defined as an active district. And the reason that that definition was added was because it is used in section 2 of the bill. So rather than having a list in statute that needs to be updated of which TIF districts are currently authorized to use education property tax increment, they just changed that to say there shall be not more than 14 active districts in the state at any time. And that was.
Okay, and active is they haven't paid off their debt.
Right.
So they may have finished their project, but basically Barry isn't off this list until it has paid off its 20-year bond.
Right, and so under this construct, it does allow a situation for once a municipality has retired their debt and paid it off, another one could be added. So that kind of changes the way it was where there was a cap before of not more than 6. However, since it takes 20 years to pay these off, it's not likely a ton of these spots would be opened up in the near future. So they chose to put a number of active districts rather than a list of districts. Section 3 of the bill deals with the boundaries of a district. So this says that no adjustments to the physical boundary lines of the district shall be made after the approval of a TIF tax increment financing district plan.
So is that different?
It is different in that they added physical boundary lines and they removed the reference to having to be wholly within the district. They thought that this was clarifying what that means by referring to the physical boundary lines of the district. For example, if a parcel is, if someone buys a parcel next to another parcel that's in the district.
That was bearish.
Yeah, and then that parcel becomes sort of one parcel. They thought it was clarifying to refer to the physical boundary lines of the parcel rather than to try to understand what it meant that it had to be wholly located within the district, because that could potentially change the lines of the district.
We're gonna have to wrap,
Okay, I will come back.
because we've gotta do that. This one, where can, it's an S fill. So the House just sent it back to us, is that?
Yeah, so they had it since the last.
Did it go to economic development, or is it coming directly to us?
It was last year, it went to economic development and then ways and means and then stayed in ways and means.
Ways and Means just sent it back.
Send it to us, though, it hasn't.
Yeah.
Hasn't
Okay.
come, no.
But right now, I'm not exercised about anything but that debt service. And I think we may just ask to have it go to conference. Or we could try further proposal.
Yeah, well,
And
and
the
there's the email asking us to make further changes to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
so
know.
we've got
Feels like we
ways
don't have
to
time
go.
to think about this stuff.
Okay, Senator Bray, it's nice to see you.